Hi, this is Shauna, the CEO and founder of Fuel Talent. One of the things I have loved most in my 25-year recruiting career has always been the stories that people tell. Stories of leadership, career choices, company ideas, and team building. My inspiration for starting the What Fuels You podcast came from being curious about people's lives and wanting to help share their stories. What path brought them to this place? What decisions did they make that led to failures and successes? Who influenced those decisions, and what lessons were learned along the way? I hope you enjoy the What Fuels You podcast. Today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast is Adam Brotman. Adam is the CEO of Brightloom, where he and his team are building the first ever digital flywheel technology platform for restaurants. A longtime technology innovator, Adam is passionate about helping brands build meaningful customer relationships through loyalty, mobile technology, and personalized digital engagement. Most recently, Adam was co-CEO, president, and CEO at J.Crew, where he was responsible for launching their first ever loyalty program. Prior to that, he spent a decade in various leadership roles at Starbucks, where he served as Executive Vice President of Global Retail Operations, as well as Chief Digital Officer. He was integral in developing and driving much of the company's best-in-class digital platforms, such as loyalty, mobile apps, mobile payment, mobile ordering, customer data-driven personalized marketing, promoted and social media strategies, and digital partnerships. So much more. And he's also, I guess it's not a new dad, you're a dad of a 4-year-old, which is crazy. So happy to see you. Welcome, Adam.
Happy to see you too, Shauna. I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, it's awesome. As I was reading the intro, I have to tell you, I'm an early mobile orderer on Starbucks. And I'm realizing like this is, that rich dad, poor dad thing of like, it's not just about making money, it's about saving money. And it almost feels like monopoly money. I'm like, what else do I want? Boop, 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 boop. Yeah. I just order it every morning. It's like
that's how we honestly, that's how we designed it to make it feel like between auto reload and everything else, it's just like,
it's a joke. It's a joke.
Get what you want. It's always going to be easy for you.
It's amazing. And I actually have a suggestion. I'm sure you know who to give it to get it to the right person. Because I have an idea that I've been like, oh, I should have called you about it. So I'm going to tell you about it. But first, I'm going to do rapid fire. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. I think I know the answer to this, but I'm curious. Are you an introvert or extrovert?
I'm an introvert that acts like an extrovert is what I say.
Yeah, I get it. What is something that you would be willing to get up really early for?
A Seahawk game, I love exciting trip, those kind of things,
Yeah, totally. Well, are you an early person or a nighttime person?
I'm an early person.
So that's an easy question for you. I'm not an early morning person. So I'm like, it would probably have to be something
like for me, like if it's 4:30 or something, that's early.
Yeah, no bueno. Yeah. Okay, so what is the best thing that you have read, seen, or listened to over the past year?
Queen's Gambit.
Oh, so good.
Queen's Gambit, yeah.
I binged that so fast.
Me too. It was one of those things where I was like, and this happens with a good book or a good movie or a good series online where you just thank God, like, I can't believe this thing exists. I just don't want it to end. I want to savor every minute of it. So I thought Queen's Gambit was that good.
Yeah, I agree. What are 3 words that people would use to describe you?
Passionate, hardworking, and nice.
I like that. What is your biggest regret? That's like a bomb.
My biggest regret? Wow.
It's a tough one.
My biggest regret is that I loved my company that I founded after being a lawyer, but I wish I had been more patient, either in staying with being a lawyer for a little bit longer, or I think about it all the time. Like, if I was going to fall in love with digital, why didn't I go work for Amazon in 1998 when I left my law practice?
Did you have a job offer there, or did you not know about it?
No. I didn't. I quit my law practice and wrote a business plan and started Play Network.
Yeah.
because that's just in my genes and I like to build things. But I should have listened to my uncle Jeff Brotman, who was my mentor, like a second father to me. And he told me that he was irritated with me and as my mentor. And my biggest regret at that time was not listening to him more. And I think I basically never. I think I listened to him every time after that.
Yeah.
And it served me well. But I should have listened to him then when he told me to be more patient.
Yeah. So you think Amazon because of like obviously the value of the equity now, or because of what you would have learned, or to be just on that rocket ship?
All the above, but less the money part. I mean, trust me, of course you can't not think about like what would have happened. But who knows what if I had gone to work at
Yeah.
Amazon, I might have been in the mail room or something, right? So who
Yeah.
knows what kind of options I would have gotten. It was more of just it's just, and this is one of the things I like to tell other people is like understand what fuels you, understand what
Yeah.
your passion is, understand like what you would just do for free all day and the time would just go by anyways. And and then it's not just go do that, it's actually go learn that. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing is like go get in that space and go learn it,
Yeah.
because and master that craft. And that's what I regret. I could have Amazon would have been an amazing place where if I would have wanted to work hard and learn, and given that I'm so passionate about digital in every respect, that I probably would have done really well there.
Well, they would have been lucky, and I'm sure if you had started in the mailroom, you would have crushed it and like gone quickly up. You would have ended up in the C-suite at some point, I'm sure.
Well,
Um, so,
you
what
never
would we be? What would our listeners, or what would I be surprised to learn about you?
be surprised to learn.
Like, do you have some
Uh,
hidden skill or some
I,
like
I, my,
crazy story?
you'd be surprised to know that I'm pretty good at Fortnite on my cell phone.
Really? You
Yeah.
and all the rest of the kids. Hopefully, it's not
Yeah.
a distraction.
No, it's actually like, it's right now I can't afford as a father of a 4-year-old and the CEO of a startup, I can't go play golf for 5 hours
Yeah.
really. Um, but I can sneak in. What's great about Fortnite is there is these 15-minute matches.
Oh,
If
okay.
you win, it's 15 minutes. You lose, it can be 1 minute. But like,
That's so good for me to know because my son will, when he was playing a lot, would be like, hold on, I'm in a battle, hold on.
oh yeah,
And
I mean,
so
and
in
when you're
my mind, I'd be like, oh, how much longer? It's good to know it's just 15 minutes.
15 minutes max. And but the thing is, it's like it's your son was right. Like you're immersed in it. And by the way, your son was probably kicking my butt. And
He's
every
hard to
time
know.
every time I lose, I'm like, I probably just got some 12-year-old boy or girl just
Yeah,
probably just beat me. But like,
probably just beat you. Yeah.
yeah, but you'd be surprised. Like, what do I do when I need to like just get a break and get a moment to myself between being a dad and being a husband and a father and a friend and a son and a brother. Like there's sometimes you just need like, can I just
Check
have,
out.
I
Yeah.
did, and I probably can't afford more than 15 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's good. It's you found your thing. I
yeah,
totally get that.
yeah.
Other people are meditating. You're playing Fortnite. I love it.
The opposite of
Well,
meditation,
I'm kidding.
but it's a form
So,
of meditation though.
so I'm assuming now because you mentioned Jeff Brotman as your kind of mentor, but
Yeah.
who is your biggest kind of hero, or who did you go to when you just need like advice?
Well, my dad and my uncle, even my mom. So it's interesting. I obviously, I was close. I'm close with my mom and my dad. And I was close with my uncle Jeff, and those three, in different ways. I mean, Jeff was uniquely able to sort of relate to things I was going through because I was always trying to like follow in his footsteps or build a company and dealing with like venture capital and private equity and trying to build, using him as a sort of a marker in a way. And so he was
Hmm.
the ultimate person that could at least relate to things and give me advice. And so that's who I would go to.
Yeah. Well, the cool part about him too, that people who might just know about Costco and know of him in that kind of spotlight way might not know. I mean, growing up as family friends, like he had a lot of ups and downs, and he probably, and so many teachings and so many, and he just kept kind of getting right back up and getting right back on the horse. And
Yeah, yeah,
I love that about him. Like he just always had that positive outlook.
he did. And that's right. His journey and his lessons, and, he was he was on the board of Starbucks. He's in other words, he's done more than just Costco, and he's failed and succeeded at more than just things that you would think. And he also was an important person to help shape my morals and my along with my mom and dad to help me think about like the importance of giving back to the community, of doing the right thing in any situation. These are just lessons that when I think of Jeff and my parents, but he and they actually relate to one another, right? They're not mutually exclusive, and that's something he taught me, is that
it's all connected.
Doing the right thing is part of what makes you successful in business. Not you don't do it despite being successful, or vice versa.
Yeah, totally. I love that. So, obviously we've known each other a long time. We're both Seattleites and grew up together. But tell me a little bit more about your childhood. Like when you were little, I know you said Seahawks. You're probably an avid sports fan.
Yeah.
But were you always thinking kind of along the lines of business, or was there ever a consideration of like going a completely different route?
It's interesting because I had a fairly unremarkable childhood, as how I would describe it. Like I was very lucky. I had a great childhood. Got to go to like camps and had friends and had attentive, loving parents. So like I had a lot of benefits and privileges. But in terms of like what did I do with all that? Not a lot. I mean, if I could go back and talk to my younger self, I'd be like, come on, man, like you should be applying yourself harder. You should be doing some other things. And so I did fine, but I just sort of like, I would say it wasn't about like, oh, did I always know? Did I, I know your brother is someone who I, in fact, would say sticks out in my mind as someone who was like remarkably entrepreneurial and business oriented at a very early age, doing like, washing people's cars and boats and just having all this just incredible. Like I didn't do that. And
Were you into school? Like, were you a good student?
I was a good student, but not off the charts,
Yeah. This is like I beg my kids to listen, not necessarily to my podcast, but podcasts where you learn, to the people that are successful who are looking back going, why didn't I not just apply myself, but take that gift of learning?
Yeah.
Of like genuinely engaging and learning.
Yeah, and Shauna, I'll pull the thread on it a little bit all the way through law school, because that's really where their story ends and where it kind of changes, which is that, so at Mercer Island High School in the Seattle area, my grades were, I can't even remember what my grades were. They were good enough, and probably, mostly an A average, but not like top of my class or anything close to that. So it was like, I couldn't have gotten into an Ivy League. In fact, I got into UCLA, but did not get into Berkeley. So it kind of gives you a sense, if you want to get a sense of where I was at, like UCLA was a very hard school to get into. Don't get me wrong.
Very hard. Yeah.
But it wasn't the same as like an Ivy League school or something. So it was, I was sort of good enough to go to a UCLA, thank God, but not good enough to do better. And then same thing happened at UCLA. My college experience was, I would describe it as fairly unremarkable. I didn't join a fraternity. I wish I did, just from a
social,
development perspective, and like learning about the importance of like relationships and friendships and networking, which would have served me well and just in life. But instead, same thing. Like I had a good time. I had a lot of great friends. I did well enough in school that I could get into a good law school at University of Washington Law School. But you wouldn't have looked back and said, oh, wow, I want to buy stock in this guy,
Well, I get it. This is why this is so interesting to me when I talk to people, because I'm like, was there a moment of growth or a moment where you're like, I better get my shit together? Or, you weren't off track, but I'm just curious when you were like, I'm starting to feel like I have something special.
I'll tell you, Shauna, I'll tell you that moment for me was at law school. And I remember, I don't know what happened. I just decided I better, like, I loved law school, by the way. It turned me on, like the intellectual stimulation of it. And I also just was at a time in my life where I got my own apartment across the street from the law school. And I remember I decided, like, let's just try for once to like hit a home run at something. And I studied as hard as I've ever studied, and I applied myself as hard as I've ever studied. And I did really well in law school, like editor of the law review, winner of the moot court competition, top of my, there was like 4 or 5 of us that were, they didn't actually rank you other than the top, I think 5 people. They said, you guys are all the top 5. So like it was top. And it wasn't about like the grades and all that stuff. It was actually when I remember the professors were saying to me, wow, like what's up with you, like what's going on. I never had gotten that feedback in my life on
Yeah.
anything. So it was a combination of like succeeding and even getting that recognition. And I remember one of the professors even said something like, all right, every once in a while you come across someone who's just got a spark and they're going to do great things. And she said this in front of our whole class about me, and
Oh, that's amazing.
I'd never gotten that feedback. And to your point, like but I was feeling it too, meaning this is true of anybody, because at that point you're talking about law school. Like it's no longer just generic school. It's, okay, this is sort of a form of a trade school in a sense, although they would hate to say
well, yeah, but it's also expensive, so you better make it count.
Yeah, and just like, you're in the level of the everyone that was at that law school, and I mean this, was smarter than me and better than me in a lot of ways. Like, in other words, it was intense competition and camaraderie, and of people who are intellectually amazing and had done better than me in every respect. And so the fact that I was able to hold my own and apply myself and feel that, like, that was my moment where I would say, oh wow, like maybe I actually am capable of things I didn't realize I was capable of. And that was the first time. That was, probably.
And you believed it inside. But I do
Yeah.
think it's important to note that this professor, this person that said that to you, is so powerful. The words that people say to you are so powerful. And sometimes when I'm talking to my kids or other people's kids, or there's teachers around, you realize, we had dinner with a friend who said that he had a teacher that in front of him told his parents that he would never amount to anything.
Jeez.
Like, basically, I'm like, who says that? But the teacher gave him doubt. And you talk about my brother. My brother was very entrepreneurial, but I was more of the student, and he was more like did what he had to do to get by.
Right.
And so in his mind, he was not as smart. And it's just crazy because I'm like, you're the one, he can do math. I mean, he does like numbers in his head so fast,
Right.
But we just had a different skill set and a different ability to focus, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think your example and mine just go to show that there's not like some defined scale about how you should sort of measure yourself and think about things. You should really, the honest truth is we all have our sort of unique abilities and our passions and our capability sets, and but a lot of it has to do with, you do have to apply yourself. Like, you
do have to apply yourself.
I really feel like, even in that Queen's Gambit, one of the things I think I got sucked in by that movie was how the character in the movie just kept going back. For those that haven't seen it, I won't spoil it, but the point is, it's about this young girl that has a lot of challenges, and she applies herself. She finds out that she loves chess, and she applies herself at like 10 years old or whatever it was, to learning chess from someone who, frankly, to our point of our conversation, saw something in her that was special. And that's why I get goosebumps even talking about it with that movie, because I felt like, not about me, but I just felt like I love that topic of like, just, figuring out that
those stories. It's like Rudy, the movie Rudy.
Yeah.
Like the person, you're just like rooting them on. It's so funny. So you practiced law, Heller Ehrman, great firm.
Yes.
Also super competitive. I think they were a client of mine when I was in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I know it's a really competitive law firm. And what kind of law were you practicing?
Corporate business law.
Okay. And at what point were you like, hey, I'd like to apply this in the business world?
It was, I would say that within real quick, within like 6 months, I remember our office was up in the Columbia Center skyscraper on the 60th floor. And here I was, this sort of, young junior associate looking at the view of the Puget Sound, and, had a big mahogany desk, and I had the title of lawyer and a JD, and I passed the bar. But I was not happy. I was like, it was not, unlike law school, it wasn't stimulating to me. Like, I felt like all I'm doing is like, moving papers around, and doing stuff. And I kept thinking like, everything's happening down there. That's when I realized I wanted to build things. I wanted to like that I could tell I had this urge to build things. And so what
Yeah.
happened is I was approached by a potential client who actually couldn't afford to hire me, but had basically built a prototype of an MP3 player, digital music
I
player.
remember this when you did this.
Yeah. And he basically approached me and said, I got this prototype of this digital player, and I think it could be really disruptive in the business space. Like, he wasn't even thinking about consumer. He's like, look, we could disrupt all these players like Muzak and all these people that were providing piped in music to retailers and restaurants. And he's like, look at this. And I remember like, it was magical. It was all digital based. And it was like, it was powered by a database that would actually feed the music and the songs and instructions of the songs to this player, and the player would play back the music at the stores and restaurants. And essentially it was a prototype of what we would today call an iPod, or a prototype of iTunes or Spotify. But I didn't know that those things didn't exist yet. I saw the future, and I was like, I immediately started, he's like, I can't afford to hire you to help me write a business plan or think about what I should do here. But I know I just need a corporate lawyer to help me. I don't know why he thought he needed a corporate lawyer, but the point is fate had it that he found me. And I just, literally.
So is he more of a technologist and you would be more of the operator of the business?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
He was so basically it was the equivalent of like, he would be like the chief technology officer and I was like the CEO. And so he basically was like, I don't know how to build a business or run a business or even think about any of this stuff, but what do you think of this? And what should I do? And I'm like, well, you need to write a business plan. And it was basically, and I spent my nights and weekends for the next couple months as a lawyer writing the business plan for Play Network. And
how about the fundraising? How did you guys go about that?
I just did it. I mean, I quit my law practice and joined full time. Actually, my uncle and my dad wrote the first checks while I was still a lawyer. When my uncle was, through gritted teeth, he was like, I'll do it, but I don't think you should do this. Like, I think it's too soon for you to be like, and I was following this is the advice I was telling you I wish I had followed earlier in the podcast. Like, I feel like, because he was saying, he was right. He was absolutely right. He's like, you haven't thought this through well enough. You have a good business plan, and this is really interesting technology, you're right, but you haven't thought this through enough. And if you want to go into digital, then think about getting a job somewhere. This was his advice to me. Like, or he liked the idea of starting a company. He wasn't dismissive of being an entrepreneur, but he was like, it's too early. You haven't analyzed the market enough, et cetera. So it was good advice. I didn't listen to it. And he wrote a check. He and my dad wrote a check to enough money that I could actually afford to quit my law practice, but not enough money to build a company. I'm talking about like,
just enough money to feel like
$100,000 total. So like $100,000 was enough that like, okay, there's enough money in the bank that like I can take a small paycheck and pay my rent at my apartment, and because I didn't own a house back then. I can live, but it wasn't enough, and I had to go raise money from angels and eventually venture capitalists.
And how much did you, I don't know actually the story, I just remember the product. And I remember being like, hey, Adam's building this cool thing. I actually think we even looked at it because we were doing investing. I just remember that there was this exciting thing, but I don't know the story of, we raised. Did it have a happy ending? Like, I don't know any of that.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it wasn't, so it was interesting. We raised $1 million. We set out after we raised the initial seed capital for my dad and my uncle, we went to go raise $1 million of angel funding. It was like, okay, well, that's enough that I can physically quit my law practice, which everyone thought I was crazy to do, including my uncle, and like start this company. But it wasn't enough to actually start building the company. So we got to raise an initial $1 million, and so we can start building real product and trying to build a business and hiring people. And we raised $1 million from angels around town in Seattle, one of whom would have been Howard Schultz, but Howard, he actually he said he would have written a check as one of our angel investors, and we got a bunch of angel investors, but Howard saw the prototype and saw the sort of the glimmer in my eye about it and said, yeah, this is really interesting. I don't know, why isn't Starbucks using this? And at the time, Starbucks had about 1,200 locations and was using another company that was using this really inferior non-digital technology. And Howard was like, I'm frustrated that we're not being innovative enough in this area. This is really innovative. Like, you choose. I'll either be an angel investor or a client, potential client. I'm like, I'd love you to be a potential client. This is, remember,
You're like,
Starbucks.
how about both?
Yeah, well,
Because his name attached to it is also, I mean, as angels, like that's helpful to be like, oh, this one's behind it, that one's behind it,
well, it would have been great, but I think I realized that we need having Starbucks as a customer would have been the ultimate thing.
Absolutely.
And they had about 1,000 locations at the time. Now they have over 34,000 locations, but they had about 1,000 locations at the time, and they were public, but they were still not. They weren't the Starbucks. I mean, they were huge, but they weren't like today.
Global and yeah.
And they weren't global yet, other than I think they had a couple locations in Japan and Vancouver, British Columbia. And so that's what happened is we kind of bet the company on getting the Starbucks deal done. And we did raise $1 million of angel financing without having the Starbucks deal done, without having anything. I don't know how we did it, but we did. I think through just my pure passion and excitement and stuff and vision. And we got $1 million of angel money in, but then we did get Starbucks signed, and
That's so awesome.
That led to getting a venture capital round done. And we ended up raising while I was there. I was there for about 9 years. We built the company up. We raised about $20 million in venture and angel, and we got to close to a $50 million revenue run rate and profitable when I decided, like, let's just go do some other stuff in life. So that's
a great outcome. I mean, just based on the statistics around startups, it's like 90% fail or something. I don't know what the number is, but it's something like, your odds are pretty low. So I can understand why Jeff was like, hey, like go learn this and then do it. Just increases your odds of being successful. So I think you were very successful. I mean, it sounds like it.
Yeah,
so how did you decide these next couple of things? I know you were at Corbis, Barefoot Yoga. I don't know about these companies.
Yeah, the quick version of what happened then is I gave 1 year notice to my own company, my own board, which I was chairman and CEO of, to say, I'm going to go do something else in my life. I was 36. I wanted to go do something bigger. I was introduced to Bill Gates through the CEO of a company that Bill Gates owned called Corbis. And it was not consumer, but it was a bigger, more interesting digital media company that provided image licenses to businesses and creatives. And that was a cool, it had an e-commerce sort of interface. It was almost like the digital image version of what Play Network was on a bigger scale. And I got introduced to they were going through a CEO transition, and the new CEO and the outgoing CEO both got to know me and brought me in. And I was totally seduced by the fact that I could meet with Bill Gates every month, because he was another one of my heroes, along with Howard and my uncle and everybody else that, of our generation. And so I took the job as, basically, like, in today's terms, I would have been the chief experience officer or something like that at that company.
Yeah.
Meaning I was in charge of like marketing and new innovation and new ventures and the customer facing designs and all that stuff. And it was a great opportunity. And at that company, I met a guy named Stephen Gillette, who's a very close friend of mine now. And but he was being hired as a CIO at the same time that I was being hired as like the equivalent of like a CXO.
Yeah.
And he's amazing. He came from Silicon Valley, and he and I hit it off. And he ended up, we were both together kind of helping Corbis do what it was doing and building that company up. But it was like, 100% owned by Bill Gates. It wasn't like there's any stock really or whatever. And Stephen Gillette left Corbis to go work as a CIO at Starbucks. And at that time he did that, I left to go try and pull off an entrepreneurial venture of creating a health and wellness e-commerce company, which is nuts to try and do in October of 2008. But I was going to try and do that.
I feel like that's just everywhere right now. I mean, that area is just exploding in the digital space.
Well, the idea was I had this idea, and I wanted to. My my cousin had started barefoot yoga, and I wanted to sort of use barefoot yoga as sort of a core element of what we would do to um, to go build this health and wellness company. Long story short, there though is like as I was sort of putting that together, and I quit my job at Corbis, and I was the CEO of this little e-commerce yoga company that was going to be the beginning of this big health and wellness e-commerce vision I had. Stephen Gillette and Howard Schultz essentially combined kind of called me up. I mean, it was really, Stephen was like, hey, Howard and I have been talking, Stephen's now the CIO of Starbucks, having this conversation with me saying, come back, come over to Starbucks. Like, we need to develop a digital strategy. Howard has he's kind of putting the band back together a little bit. And because he had left as CEO and came back as CEO, and they offered me the job of head of digital to work with Stephen and the team. And it was, I was like, I'm going to do this. Like, this sounds
Did
great.
you feel any sort of like, I mean, you've obviously got incredible experience, but was there ever a part of you that's like, had some sort of like imposter syndrome? Like, how did I get in this room? Or were you like, hey, I know digital and I'm uniquely qualified for this? Because that's a huge undertaking.
Well, first of all, I have imposter syndrome all the time, still do. But at the time, the answer is, it was less about that because there was there wasn't much going on digitally there. So there, in a weird way, it was like, hey, we should be, they had a Facebook page and a website and a plastic gift card. And so they knew they being Starbucks, and they had a lot of talented people there working in digital, but they were doing more things with digital marketing, not some other things. And so I was able to come in when there was a need to transform digital, to build up digital. So
did you have to like interview for the job? Like, what were the kinds of questions that they're using to vet you for this type of job? Because all the stuff that you touched is so innovative. I mean, like, you could, to me, like, I understand most people have some form of imposter syndrome, but to me, you could be like, drop the mic. I mean, Starbucks is so ahead of the curve digitally. Like, I want every company. I'm like, why isn't everybody as efficient as Starbucks?
Oh, that's so nice of you to say that. But no, I was, again, I had the benefit of the fact that I was personally a known quantity to some at Starbucks, including the leadership. And then of course, Stephen Gillette, because he had been my peer and my partner at Corbis. So I was lucky that I was being brought in to a company that sort of knew me a little bit, not entirely, but enough, right? Enough that like, and also I remember when I started at Starbucks, and this would be an interesting lesson or whatever for people thinking about their career journeys. I actually went, I started out as vice president of digital was my title or whatever. So it was like, I'd been a CEO and whatever, and I'd been an EVP, but I needed to have a moment of investing in myself. I had to have a moment where they were going to believe in me. I had to believe in myself, but I wasn't being given, like, I was an individual contributor, vice president at a Fortune 200 company with a huge remit, but not a team. And it was a little bit of like, Adam, I was being told by everybody, we're giving you a big remit, but we're also, if you're not able to like come up with the right answers or be successful, you're not going to get a team, and this isn't going to go anywhere. So I was like, let's go. And it was very entrepreneurial. If you think about it, it's like, go build this vision and build a team. It's just like I almost I almost became like a founder of Starbucks.
Totally. You're like an entrepreneur. So you're in there. Yeah. That's amazing. So I need to tell you before I forget about my idea that I'm like, they have to be working on this. Because I do the ordering constantly, and I know Layla's order, Jordan's order, my kids, but I also grab coffees for my girlfriends, and I have those now in my contacts, what they like, because I just want them in my Starbucks order to put Rachel, Hada, Jessica. Like,
totally.
I want their names next to their orders.
I know you mean. Like, I would love, because I have to kind of scan through the
right. I'd be like, oh wait, he just wants one espresso shot, and this one likes like extra foam. And
I mean, the way you do it now is you save them, right, as a favorite, or you're there as
But
a
I don't know
preview.
whose favorite it is. I have so many in there.
I know.
And I
That's a
get
great
coffees
point.
for people all the time. I'm like,
You
why
almost
can't I
want to
just
be
have
able
a
to
name?
like quickly do a search by name and
Yeah.
tag it with the name.
Please tell somebody. I literally am like, this has been like bugging me for like 6 months.
I will pass that along.
Okay, cool. I know you still got the ends, so just make it happen.
I will.
So I'm super curious because I mean, you're talking about, regrets around Amazon, and I don't know if you've had any exposure to Jeff Bezos.
I'm not.
But people talk about being kind of Jeff ready when you go into a meeting and how you prepare for a meeting with him.
Right.
Same thing with Bill Gates.
Yes.
And I haven't heard as much of that type of way of speaking about Howard Schultz, but I am curious if you're stylistically like, hey, I'm Adam through and through, this is how I roll at work, or if you find that you have to adjust your style to, I guess, the CEO that you're meeting with.
I should adjust more than I do, and not because I'm being stubborn or I'm think highly of myself, but I just have one speed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're seeing it on this podcast, but this is how I lead. This is how I manage, and this is how I present. I try and be conversational, authentic, and transparent, and I try to be excited and excitable.
Yeah. I love that. But, when you hear about being like Bill ready, going in and you better know your stuff because he's smarter and one step ahead of everybody.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
people have said like, you don't want to get caught on your heels in a meeting with him or not have the answer or not be transparent that you don't have the answer.
That's a true statement. So I have presented to Bill Gates. It's been a while, but many times when I was at Corbis, and everything you just said is true. And you learn to adjust your style. And by the way, Howard's very different from Bill, and I've never presented to Jeff, but what they have in common is and I could get into the nuances, the differences, but you have to know your stuff. Like you have to be Howard ready as much as you got to be Bill ready. And I'm sure Jeff ready. Like these are iconoclastic, whatever the word is, like leaders in their area. And you're not going to get a lot. Their time is incredibly precious. With the difference is that with Howard, Howard was incredibly smart, and you needed to know your stuff, but he knew more about what he was doing than anyone on the planet in his area. And the difference is with Bill wanted to and could get up to speed on any topic like a computer, like very quickly. Like he was like a form of like IBM's Watson or AI or something. He was amazing.
I've heard that from so many people. And a lot of F-bombs thrown around, I've heard.
Yeah, a lot of F-bombs. And I would write down notes, like he would say something with an F-bomb in it that was like the most brilliant thing I'd ever heard, but also with an F-bomb in there. So like it made the statement incredible. But I'd say that it was different though. Like you needed to know your stuff. But what I loved about so the Bill stuff was sort of fascinating. You needed to be prepared to spar with him. You needed to have all your facts down. He was going to suck up the knowledge that you had just spent 3 months working on, and he will suck it up in 5 minutes and be smarter about the topic than you are. And that happened a lot with Bill. But the difference is, like with Howard, he knew his stuff, but he was looking less to like spar with you or like have some academic conversation. Howard was all about like vision and entrepreneurial energy and like getting people to accomplish more than they thought was possible to accomplish. And so for Howard, what was amazing is you better come into a meeting with a pretty clear vision of what you want to accomplish, right?
Yeah, I love that. And so what did you learn as far as culture? Because I've never worked at Starbucks, but obviously in recruiting, we see candidates come and go out of Starbucks into Starbucks. And is there a common thread among people that are successful there?
Yeah, I would say yes. Starbucks is the culture at Starbucks was, I mean, I haven't been there in a few years, but definitely was and probably still is fueled on the ability to have great relationships and to understand how to navigate relationships to accomplish things. So that I feel like the culture at Starbucks is about showing up for you. They call employees at Starbucks partners, and
Yeah.
and
Even the people that are the baristas,
baristas
right?
partners. Yeah, if
Yeah.
you work for Starbucks, you are called a partner.
I
And
love that.
it started out because Howard and the team gave health insurance and stock options to every employee, including part-time baristas, and that they basically put their money where their mouth was and said, you are our partner as much as anybody would be a partner. And that means shared ownership and benefits and treatment. And that's embedded into the culture of Starbucks. And that's what I mean. So when you think about like what makes a successful leader at Starbucks, either because Starbucks made them a successful leader or there's a good match of culture to personality, it's going to be a leader that isn't overly political, it's not all about like trying to be the smartest person in the room.
Or take credit and weird stuff. Yeah.
Give credit.
Yeah.
Help other people win. Understand people's personalities. Have high EQ. These are all traits that I think are embedded in the Starbucks culture. And you wouldn't expect something different from Starbucks. Like what you see is what you get. Like,
I love Starbucks.
You go to a Starbucks and the whole company is based on the idea that the barista partner will know you and care about you and want to nourish you in some sense and inspire you. And like, that's what the brand's about. And so it's a people driven culture.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I love the story of origin of the company. Just like, who would have thought that this could have become what it became? Because people are like, oh, no, people just want like a 90-cent, like stupid little coffee. They're not going to pay $3 or whatever for a coffee. And they don't want to sit down, but they do. Right. They want to sit and have that social experience. So I'm curious, like, as you've now, obviously you're running your own company. I'm curious what types of things you've taken from the experiences you've had in the past and kind of woven into the type of culture you're trying to create and the type of people that you want to surround yourself with, just all of it, because you've gotten this incredible experience.
Yeah, it's been, Brightloom used to be called Itza, and it's interesting because what I didn't anticipate enough and didn't think through enough a little bit was when I took over Itza, we did a combination of things. Itza had been a restaurant company that had built its own technology, and it was really cool technology, these cubbies and these digital ordering stations. It was like this really futuristic tech-oriented restaurant concept that it didn't end up making it or work as a restaurant concept. And then they tried to pivot into being a restaurant technology company using the technology they had built for themselves to maybe offer to other restaurants. And they were struggling to do that or trying to do that right at the time I came in a little over a year ago. And I was brought in by the chairman of the company, who was a venture capital guy who's great, a guy named John Shulkin, who is at Valor Capital. And he had been putting together a venture capital fund with Kevin Johnson and Starbucks. So that was the connection, is that Starbucks and Itza were thinking about doing something together using kind of Starbucks ideas around technology and Itza's platform. And I came in and I was excited about the idea of like being able to kind of imprint myself and my ideas and my thoughts on the culture of the company. And I was excited to be a CEO again. And I didn't do enough thinking about like, wait a minute, there's already a company here that has a culture. And yes, they've had some struggles, but they did some cool things, and they've been around for 5 years. And like, I underestimated the fact that I would need to come in and I'll call it, try to transform a culture or imprint myself on an existing culture. It wasn't like it was a blank slate. And
it wasn't like, hey, I've just got this open canvas and I'll just
No. And I probably should have done a better job, frankly, of being, I'll call it, I should have done a better job initially of understanding like, wait a minute, this isn't about just like creating a culture from whole cloth. This is, I'm having to sort of
bring people along.
Yeah. And I tried my best to do that. And I feel like we eventually have gotten some of the way there, but like, that was sort of an initial thing, because we ended up deciding to like not pursue the businesses that Itza had been pursuing, even in its pivoted restaurant technology services company, and we decided to focus on customer data and how customer data can help brands do a better, more effective job of marketing in a personalized way. And that's something that Starbucks is very good at. And you know that
Yeah.
you get the, very unique personalized offers and marketing that you get on your app. We decided that we're going to focus on making that kind of a capability set available to any consumer brand, whether it be a retail or restaurant company. And we knew how to do it because we knew how Starbucks went about doing it. And we understood that that was not something that was easy to do, but that meant we had to shut down the rest of what Eatsa was doing. We had to rename the company Brightloom, and we needed to basically not just transform the culture, but because we were transforming the entire business plan. And that was interesting. So we went through that, and I almost would be honest with you and say, I was like, wow, here's what I want us to be thinking about. Here's what I want our culture to be. But I probably should have stepped back a little bit better and said, oh, I got to bring everyone along. And by the way, doing that through great ambiguity. I mean, we didn't know exactly how we were going to do it. We were akin to I'll call it like a Y Combinator, startup in terms of like how far along we were in our thinking and whatever. We had great vision, but we had a team in place. We had people in place. So that's an interesting combination because
Yeah.
a lot of ambiguity at first. I mean, we've gotten a lot clearer now, but there was a lot of ambiguity at first.
The cool part about your whole career is that there is, I'm sure you realize this, that you're kind of getting like brought along and recruited by people that you know. The part that I didn't address that I completely skipped over was this part on your resume. I don't even know if you would call it like a hiccup or a cool, awesome, explosive experience, but you left, you went to New York, you worked for J. Crew. I remember reading about that when that happened.
Yeah.
I kind of skipped over all that because I was so excited to talk about Brightloom, but tell me about that. What was that about?
That was, but that was great experience for me. And it was, we wanted an adventure. We signed up, my family and I, meaning my wife and I, and my daughter was 1, so she just went along for the ride, but we signed up for an adventure. And we said, we've lived in Seattle our whole life. Our daughter's 1. If there's ever
if not now, when?
Yeah. And it was a bucket list for both Carrie and I that we wanted to try living in New York. I mean, it was let's try it. And so let's set it up to where, there's an off ramp. If we don't like it, we can go back to Seattle or whatever. So we kept our stuff in Seattle, and we got a place in New York, and I took the job as chief experience officer and president of J. Crew. And we went for it. And it was a new industry. Yes, I was in charge of, amongst other things, a bunch of stuff that I had experience in, which is digital and operations, but not in the retail fashion area. And yes, your family and my family has a long history in retail apparel, but I'd never actually been an executive in any sort of meaningful way in that space. And so it was new industry, new town, let's do the bucket list. And
where did you live?
We lived in Brooklyn.
Oh, nice. Yeah, very New York.
In the Fort Greene area. And,
wow. Okay.
And we just went for it. And within 3 months, I was like, oh boy, this is not for me. Meaning this is my wilderness period. I immediately could tell. I didn't feel comfortable. Maybe it's because I was a little too old being thrown into Brooklyn and taking the subway and trying to learn a new industry that was going through at a company that had enough challenges as it was. And then, my wife and I, and she felt the same way. We're like, no, Brooklyn isn't for us. And Brooklyn's awesome, by the way. I love Brooklyn. And when we go back to New York since then, I go back to, the neighborhood we were in, and it's neat. I liked it. It's just for us. I just don't think we signed up for it.
Yeah, you may have liked it in your 20s when you were single. And I mean, that's when I moved there in my 20s and being single, and just the energy, the minute I got there, I was in love. And
that's why we wanted to try it, because we love the energy. We love it, and we love New York.
Living there and visiting are different though.
It was tough, and we were that's right, with a child.
It's a whole thing with kids.
It was tougher. And and work was tough and interesting. I mean, I enjoyed what I did. Great people there. I enjoyed what I did, but it was going through its struggles.
But another iconic leader, Mickey Drexler. I mean, you've
Yeah.
worked with and for side by side with incredible leaders that I'm just in awe of.
Yeah.
Are there any that you would just like put on your list of like, I would just kill to be alongside? Don't say Elon Musk. Everyone says.
No, I mean, no,
Everyone says him.
no, I mean, it's, I got a chance there. I was exposed to Jack Dorsey at Twitter and Square when Starbucks was heavily involved with both of his companies. And he's somebody who I just tremendously admire, and, you know, would have loved to have worked for either one of his companies. I just really like how he operates and thinks. And I love both those companies, frankly. And then, and you mentioned it, Jeff Bezos is somebody who I would love to, would have loved to, or would love to have exposure to. So, I mean, those are the folks that stick out,
Yeah.
Mark Benioff at Salesforce is someone else
Yeah.
who I admire tremendously. And these are people who I don't know. I've never met Jeff Bezos or Mark Benioff personally, but those are some of the leaders that come to mind.
I don't know Jeff Bezos. I know Mark very well, actually, totally randomly. He's my friend who, I met him when he was at Oracle, and, I've traveled with him and been really close with him. And he is one of these people that is just, talk about a visionary.
Yeah.
I mean, he was picturing Salesforce, the growth. I don't know that he thought it would come to where it has come, but he had big ideas for Salesforce early on. So he's a good one.
Yeah. He's on top of my list. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm happy to introduce you if that makes sense.
Thanks.
So tell me about Brightloom, like the actual business model now, and how this period of COVID has impacted the business.
Yeah. So what we're tackling at Brightloom is the fact that if you're a brand, it doesn't matter if you're retail or restaurant, to be honest. We focus on restaurants just because of certain factors that were pre-existing. But the truth is, if you're a brand of any kind that has digital relationships with your customers, what I mean by the ability to email them or send them a push notification, maybe they've got a loyalty account, or they do online ordering with you or e-commerce with you, which I've just described basically every consumer brand today. If you've got digital relationships and you've got data on your customers, so are you using that data to market to your own customers in a very personalized way? And the answer for most brands is no. The answer and now it's ridiculous that that's the case, because the capability set is there for every brand. You don't need to just be on Salesforce or have Oracle or all these fancy tools that are out there. Like, there's a lot of companies that do allow you to use your data to market to your customers in a certain way, but for some reason most don't. And the reason why is because it's really complicated. To actually get your data organized and be able to access it and analyze it and use it in a way that you can send messages and offers to your customers that are personalized, which is what the customer wants, because it makes them feel known and understood, and they get relevant messages. And it's better for the business because if you can tailor the message, it's more likely to have an impact. And you can minimize the amount of discounts you need to offer, et cetera. But most people aren't doing it. So Brightloom, I think we know why. We think we have an answer for that, which is the fancy answer is to bring artificial intelligence to the table and automate the entire process using computers and predictive models in order to basically take that data in and create smart segments that cover your entire customer base and allow you to offer a personalization engine. That is at its essence what Brightloom does. And we've built a platform with a team of data scientists and data engineers that makes it really easy for any brand to just get us their basic transaction history data and step back and watch as we just produce on this amazing, let our artificial intelligence, let our models, let our software go to work, and we produce just the right messages and offers that you should be sending to every one of your customers, and make it easy for you to do that. So that is the vision and the opportunity for Brightloom, and what we bring to the market that's unique, because no one else is taking that AI-led approach to data-driven marketing in our space.
I think it's amazing. And so what is the kind of challenge right now? Is it acquiring customers? Because I'm the connector person who's like, oh, I want to introduce them to this.
Oh
We
yeah.
probably already have them all as customers, or like maybe
Well,
not.
no. We so, and I'll tie it back to your COVID question. So it's interesting how when we got to the beginning of this year, in fact, I'm doing an all hands meeting with my company on Zoom, which we do every Friday. I'm doing one tonight or this afternoon, and kind of doing a retrospective because of the holidays that are coming up. And I'm sure everybody's doing this. Like you think about like, where were we on this date last year? Which is, it seems like it was a minute, and it seems like it was 10 years ago at the same time. And it's like, we had not yet formally decided to focus on just this marketing and data problem. We were still, essentially for all intents and purposes, still Eatsa, the restaurant technology company. We had a Starbucks license and a deal, and we had the Eatsa technology, and we were like, what do we want to be, and how do we want to do this? This is too many things. We need to focus, and we need to figure this out. And so we decided in December and January, essentially around the holidays and the beginning of the year, to focus on this opportunity to pioneer, AI-driven marketing in the consumer brand space. And we were like, okay, let's do that. And we put a business plan together and presented it to our board of directors and to our company. And we basically got focused in January and February of last year based on this. And then the pandemic hit. And we were lucky in a way, because we had just decided, like, let's go spend 3 to 6 months building out our platform and hiring a team. And now we wanted to build the plane while we were flying. I mean, we wanted to get real customers to use us, even though we hadn't built the product entirely yet. So we set about signing up pilots, like free pilots at first, and saying, look, and we signed up. Right now, today, we have 27 brands on our platform. And it's not 100, but it's 27, and they're big brands.
So when you say brands, okay, so big brands.
Yeah, they're like national chains or regional chains of either restaurants or retailers primarily. Some couple of pure e-commerce companies as well. So that's what I mean. And some of them are,
It's kind of cool for them though, because I've done that beta testing for tech startups who may want to be in our space of testing out some sort of talent acquisition platform or something. And the cool part about it as a customer is that they can give you real-time feedback, and you can tweak it if it works for your business.
Yeah, and that's the stage we're in right now. So you had a situation but when the pandemic hit, though, I'll be honest, it was both great timing and terrible timing for us, because, like everybody, in some senses, we were in the right space at the right time. Hey, we're in digital. We're going to help companies be able to leverage the data they've got on their digital customers, and that was exploding, and it still is. That's a great thing. And we also had good timing, because we needed to go build our platform and hire our team at a time where it was more about that than it was about revenues or bringing on customers. Mm-hmm. And so what a good time to like put our heads down and work, since our customers were in survival mode, a lot of them. I mean,
well, that's what I was going to say. My friends who own restaurants, even restaurant chains, those guys were freaking out,
terrified.
It's an industry that got crushed.
Yeah, and still
and
is.
Retail crushed.
Both.
But the digital experience is crucial.
Correct. So that's what I mean. It was mixed feelings on everybody's part, mixed situation.
Well, it's kind of like their heads or their hands, whatever it's called, they're up against a wall, because it's like you don't really have a choice. You have to get on board with this digital strategy and an analysis around your customers, or you're going to be out of business.
Correct. And we feel like we chose the right path too, because had we decided to offer loyalty services or ordering services, and then the pandemic hit, well, everybody just got on whatever loyalty or ordering capability there was. But you can't go to a store or restaurant today that doesn't have what they need in terms of those things. But they don't use digital. They do not use data for their digital marketing right now. Not really. And so we're still on the right path. We have 27 brands that are on there. And
Mhm.
we as a company went to being a virtual workplace at the same time, which
And where are you guys based, like officially? Where's HQ? Here?
officially Seattle now. We were in San Francisco officially. We moved the official office to Seattle, but that was almost more academic than practical because we did so at the time that we went virtual. So we decided actually to be, I'll call it kind of permanent or semi-permanent virtual distributed workforce.
It's going to be an interesting whole other set of questions and challenges around culture and
Yeah,
talent acquisition and how you retain people. And yeah.
I agree. It's been, and I'd say, like everything else, it's had its pros and cons. I mean, we didn't have a choice. We weren't going to put people in an office
Yeah.
together we knew we were like a year away from that.
But you can have my office space. Mine's
Well,
on Fifth and Union, and it's just like, it's so sad downtown right now. And I'm
I
sitting
know.
on this office space and I'm super conflicted because we're doing great working remotely. And who knew? I always was very about FaceTime. And
Yeah.
I felt that I had to see it and touch it and feel it to get it. And I'm like, we're doing fine. I mean, I'd love to see you in person, but like, this
Yeah.
is fine.
Yeah. What I'd say about that is that, at least from our experience, and you're right, we've been very productive, more than you could ever imagine. I mean, can you imagine? Like, in fact, I was asking my team, how many people have we hired? 'Cause remember, we were putting our team together. So essentially, like, a third of the company has been hired. I've never been in the same room as a third of the people that work for us, right? So
That's amazing.
yeah, it's an amazing thing to think about. We have 53 people working for us, and I think approximately 17 or whatever have been hired since the pandemic started. And
Wow.
and so what's good is that we can be productive when we're virtual, and we're a software company, or software as a service, cloud-based software. We can do it like
Yeah.
everybody else, but it gets in the way.
It's tough, well, especially because you're trying to innovate. I've got a services business,
Yeah.
much easier to be virtual.
Yeah, we as a company have a long way to go still, to make sure that we're listening to each other, to make sure that we're collaborating in certain ways. Which is weird because the technical tools for communicating and working together and collaborating have never been more used and are there. But there's something you can tell that sometimes we're talking past each other. We're still not, even for a little company, we can have silos. We're not firing on all cylinders. And I don't think it's just because we're remote. I think there's cultural and management issues that we need to work on. I think, so it's not an excuse. I think being remote doesn't help.
Being remote is tough, and there's tons of conversations happening around it. Almost all my clients, that's kind of a big part of what we're focusing on.
Yeah.
And what you said, 17 people. I mean, how do you make them feel that stickiness where they're not recruitable to just get a call and be like, I'm either at Brightloom or some other company. You have to be like touching the product, feeling valued, all this stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And it cuts both ways. We've told our employees, like, look, if you want to live somewhere that's not Seattle, it's okay. In other words, we will get an office again when it's safe to do so. But the difference is we won't require people to come to the office. People won't have their own little offices anymore. Like those things aren't going to happen. Like we're going to evolve from here, and we will get back together, and we'll try to have the best of both worlds when it's safe to do so.
Yeah. Tell me about this deal I read about with Pizza Hut.
Oh, that's
is that still happening?
Yes and no. That's actually, though, that was back. We did a deal with Pizza Hut back on the digital cubbies that we have.
Oh, when you originally.
Yeah. So we did that, and there's actually one of the cubbies, one of our cubby systems live in a Pizza Hut in California, but we've actually transitioned out of that business. And actually, we found another company that's sort of in the cubby business that has licensed our technology, is going to take that over. So but that's not right now.
That's not what you're focused on.
That's not one of the 27 brands.
Oh, okay. I was thinking when you said 27 brands, I'm like,
no.
Getting some of these big name brands, I'm like, that's hard to do.
Yeah,
awesome.
No, if you saw our list of brands, you'd be impressed. It's a good list. And
I'm not surprised.
But we still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. And so what are your long-term goals for the business? Like, and, I guess I'm always curious, like, do you feel successful? And if not, when will you say, like, I feel successful?
Yeah, we definitely are not in a place where we would say we feel successful. Not because we're proud of the product we've built and the pilots we've got and the process we're on and whatnot. But no, we're not there yet. We are, hopefully our goal is by next spring that we can say we feel like we have our first modicum of success. Our goal is like, let's get enough paying customers and enough momentum.
Yeah, right. The beta testers are going to say,
Yeah.
I need this, I can't live without it, and look
Correct.
at the measurement of what it's done to my business.
That's right. So that's the mode we're in right now. And we're making great progress on that. You know, some of our accounts have already started to flip into being paid, and we're getting good feedback, but we're still learning. You know, we're at a stage right now where we have the gift. You always talk about, like, feedback's a gift. We're getting feedback. I mean, we had to make some changes to what we did, and we made those changes, and the customers seem happy with those, and they've been attracted to certain things that we were like, we didn't think that was that interesting, and they love it. And so you're starting to learn, like, what's working, what's not working, making adjustments. And that's where we're at now. And then where do we want to be in 10 years from now? I'm convinced that in 10 years from now, Brightloom will be considered a leader in data-driven marketing. Like, and specifically, they'll talk about, wow, like, if you want to use your data to connect with your customers and grow your business, and Brightloom is the company that does it the best. There's no one right now, in my opinion, that can say that. And I think there's a huge opportunity for us to be the leader in that space.
Yeah, well, it's exciting. I know that you will, and I'm excited to watch your success. So aside from Fortnite, how are you, like, taking care of yourself, finding time to relax?
Yeah, we got a Peloton recently. I like that.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'll follow you. Send me your
deeds. Yeah.
I love the Peloton.
Yeah. So that I find that's interesting. We're temporarily here in Santa Barbara, California area. And so there's a lot of hiking I've been trying to do, which is really cool here.
Yeah.
I miss my sports. There's sports on, but it's just been such a weird
It's not
year.
The same. I know. Yeah. We bought season tickets for the Kraken team. I don't even know anything about hockey, but I was like, well, that sounds fun and exciting. And but now I'm like, well, I don't even know if that's ever going to happen. It's just a crazy time right now, completely. Yeah. And so we talked about some of these tools that people are using because it's a new day at work, all the business tools. And how do you, I guess, what are the apps that you're depending on, or the productivity hacks?
Well, Zoom, of course, like everybody else is, everyone uses like Zoom or Teams or whatever. So Zoom is important. Our company uses all the Google Cloud tools. So we use Google Docs, and of course we use Slack as well. So we have Slack, and then we have the Google suite of tools like email and docs and slides. And so we do use those pretty well, all those tools. And I would say,
how about you personally? Just to, like, Monday morning, you're like, I better have a kick-ass week besides ordering your Starbucks. What else are you using it doesn't have to be an app. It just could be like, how do you set yourself up to make sure it's a productive and good week?
So it probably drives my team crazy, but what I do, I've started doing this thing that I don't know if it's helpful or not, but generally speaking, on the weekends, I will write down my thoughts about the company and where we are and where we're going. Because the truth of the matter is, particularly as a startup, and I bet this is true, I bet you the Mark Benioff and Howard Schultz will say this will never end. Like, you're always at a place as a CEO in particular where you are taking stock of where am I? Like, where did we just come from, and where are we going? And what is my view of the world right now, and how is that different than last week and the week before? And I tend to just write it down and send it to my team. And I do it on an email. I don't do it on a Google Docs. I'll be honest, I'm old school about, like,
I get it.
I can't take all the notifications and all the comments. All that kind of stuff.
I get it.
So I do, to me, that's what I do. I tend to write my thoughts down, over the weekend for my team. And then the biggest thing I'm doing is frankly in making sure that the team is driving that week on the most important things that are on my mind. And it's really important that you don't thrash the team. So it can't be some new shiny object. It's got to be a problem that we're just muscling through to solve. And kind of how are we feeling about it? What are we learning from our customers? Like what is our sales organization telling us on behalf of our customers that we need to be doing better about our product or our services or our strategy? And so it's a lot of that.
Yeah. I think that's a great method. I mean, everybody's got their own little thing of how they work, and
yeah,
that one sounds like a good one. So my ultimate question, because I know I need to let you go, we're both cutting it tight, like cruising into our next meeting. And I'm going to send you an email after, because I have a few follow-up questions, but I'm just curious, like your ultimate fuel, like what fuels you, gets you out of bed? What's your legacy? That's a big one.
Yeah. I would say I want to continue to build things that actually matter to people. Like so it's I want to help people too. So I want both. So in other words, I feel, and I actually link them together. So if I can do anything, if we can build great companies, build great products that matter and solve real problems in the world, then, and trust me, I'm not doing it. It's my team that's doing it. So if I can give credit where credit's due and help people in their careers while we're building these great things, that these leaders and these team players are actually the ones doing the work, then I love, that's what gets me up in the morning. That's my fuel. Like that's my way of putting a little dent in the universe.
I love it. I'm wishing you good luck. I can't wait to watch Brightloom continue to crush it, and you continue to crush it personally.
Thanks,
Say
Sean.
hi to Carrie, and happy everything. Happy holidays, happy safety, and lots of love.
You too. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the What Fuels You podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, and follow us on social media to keep up with the latest news and episodes. You can also contact us at podcast@fueltalent.com to provide feedback, ask questions, and share topics or guests you would like us to cover in the future. We hope you feel inspired by our guests and that we have helped fuel your day. Join us next time for another episode of What Fuels You.